Hi again, this is Professor Innes, and we are now on our 9th module, which is the problems of metaphysics. Now, this is important within philosophy because we are dealing with those considerations which are intangible in nature. And by being intangible, we mean they're non-physical. So we have the physicists, or all the physical scientists, dealing with physical matter and proving the importance of that physical matter, and in the first place that the physical matter in fact exists. So therefore the physicists will continue with their experiments, and they will continue the experiment 100 times or 1,000 times and come up with a conclusion, so some understanding about the nature of that physical matter. And we look at that research data and we say, okay, this looks pretty reasonable to me. Right, but with these intangibles, which us philosophers have to deal with, there's no way of carrying out such an experiment. We cannot, for example, carry out an experiment on free will, for example, which is one of the topic matters in free will. Free will is something to be said by humans. It's what makes us human beings, as opposed to mere animals in the animal kingdom. But the problem is, can we prove this free will exists? We'd like to have the free will. We say, okay, without it, as we said, we're not human. But where is it? We've got a problem here. So that's one of the considerations of what we refer to as an intangible consideration of something important, or consideration of something that's intangible that is important. So in that way, I come up with lots and lots of other problems which are still remaining, such as personal identity, that's intangible. The meaning of life is intangible. Moral considerations are intangible. Political considerations are intangible. So thereafterwards, we've got all of these considerations which the metaphysician deals with because they are important. They are there to explain the physical world, such as explaining us physical beings as humans by the possession of free will. It makes us who we are as humans. The discussion of marriage, for example, what is marriage between two human beings? Is it between a man and a woman? Is it, is that what a marriage is? It's very difficult because, again, it's intangible in nature. It's not like here we say that in order to live you need a heart. Without a heart you die. That's pretty straightforward. We can carry out experiments upon that many times and come up with the findings that humans need hearts to live. So thereafterwards, discussing things like marriage, would the whole society break down if people got married who were not man and woman, for example? Therefore, is marriage therefore only between a man and a woman? So that's one of the contentious extensions of metaphysics in discussing intangible considerations. So what you're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks after this introduction is discussing Plato's notion of realism, Locke's notion of conceptualism, and Berkeley's notion of nominalism. So keep in mind, with these three philosophers, you're going to be discussing universals. Plato discussed forms, Locke discussed mental concepts in the mind, and Berkeley discusses universals as being properties of language. So these are very different understandings of this universal we refer to and where these universals reside. They are different from each other and they have, we might say, drastic consequences as far as arguing something and come up with a different consideration. If we talk about marriage with Plato, then that marriage is stuck as an independent reality, and that's what we refer to. With Locke, it's a mental concept, and marriage may change from decade to decade, from century to century. And with Berkeley, it's something to do with another language. It's codified within a language. So we are going to look at these three and come up with, extensions of the meaning, obviously understand what they're talking about in the first place, and apply it to given examples. Right, so that's what you're going to be doing. And again, that's 3 weeks, so plenty of time to go through those 3 discussions on the discussion of universals. Right, so what we're doing in the introduction, the problems of metaphysics, is you're going to be touching upon causation, the problems of causation, problems of personal identity. You're going to be doing free will as well. So all of those are important in metaphysics because they're problematic. Like we said, with free will, how do you prove you have free will? This thing called personal identity. Human beings like to think they have identities, but where does it reside? What is it when we find it? And causation, another good one here, because causation is very problematic in our daily lives, because we like to think we know what causes things to happen. So, if a riot happens, we as sociologists like to go out into the big wide world and say, this riot has occurred, and this is what caused it. But it's not as straightforward as that. Sociologists know causes of riots are open to debate. So the riot in Ferguson, for example, happened, and people were watching the riot on the television as it was happening and asking the question of what caused this riot. Now you could say it was the rioters. For many people, it's pretty straightforward. Riots are caused by rioters. Is that true? Maybe the police started the riots, or some other factor caused the riots to come into being. We're not quite sure, so we have to do some investigating. Even after the investigation, it's not 100% sure that we know what caused the riot. So, in that sense, causation is a metaphysical consideration because it's intangible in nature, it's non-physical, it comes after we have codified all the physical matter, and now we have to deal with the non-physical matter. And cause is one of those non-physical considerations. There is a gap between the cause and effect, and therefore we're not quite sure that that thing that came after the cause is in fact that which was caused by that factor. So did A cause B to come into account? Simply because A comes up directly afterwards, and even after 1,000 times it comes afterwards, doesn't mean to say that A was the cause. Okay, so we've got problems, big problems with the understanding of causation. So again, that's in the realm of the intangible. And the intangible is what we have to deal with on a daily basis. It is important. We constantly explain things with intangible explanations. That's why we have problems in explaining things. Me explaining the purpose of metaphysics is difficult because it's dealing with the subject of the possible inexplicable in the first place. But I'm trying to do my best, and hopefully it's worked in that sense. So it is problematic. We've got great difficulties with it. Right, so I think that will do as far as our explanation. I'll keep it short, which is 8 minutes. I can assure you, for a philosopher, that is short. Yeah. Okay, so your journal entries. So today, please find, not today, but in the journal entry in a few days. And again, keep in mind, you make your initial entry about metaphysics, which has got nothing to do with what I'm going to say now. I reply to you, and then you make this reference to what I'm going to put forward now. And the reference this week is towards 3 things which are of metaphysical importance. So what we have here are 3 examples of metaphysical importance. So, for example, the nature of marriage is important because we argue it possibly to be something quite strict in nature, but is it strict? Is marriage simply between 2 people of the opposite sex? You might think that's pretty straightforward. Yes, it is. But is that the case? Right, so that would be an example. Don't discuss that one, please, but choose other ones. So you're going to choose 3 examples of considerations which have metaphysical importance. Therefore, they're problematic in nature. They're physical in nature, but the explanation of them is very difficult to put forward, if at all possible at all. So 3 examples of metaphysical importance. please. Okay, and again, this is up to you. You've got quite free range on this one. Just find them. It could be to do with politics. It could be to do with a conversation we had with your friend about why you're a student, for example. That is a metaphysical consideration, because nobody's got the answer to that one. Really, you could put forward the tangible physical explanation, but that doesn't explain all of it. Even that tangible explanation needs to be understood through something which is intangible. The meaning of being a student, for example. Okay, so that's your journal entry. So provide 3 examples of metaphysical importance. Okay, I'll stop here and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, and let me know if you need anything, please. Thanks. Bye.